Welcome to the Buckeye Battle Cry Show with Brandon Held. I'm a long-time diehard sports fan, especially the Ohio State Buckeyes. This week, we're going to talk about the Week 3 highlights from the college football season, the Buckeyes versus Ohio, discussion of other notable games and teams, and my picks from last week, my top 10. This week's Legends in Scarlet and Gray, part of our weekly series, a preview of next week's top 5 games and my picks, and my Instagram topic of the week. Let's start with week 2 highlights. There were a lot of close, good games this weekend, especially some higher ranking teams playing each other, and it made the games really enjoyable to watch. If you're a fan of one of those teams, I'm sure your anxiety and your angst was through the roof in these games, whether you won or not, just because of the back and forth nature and who came out on top. And I know when Ohio State's in tight ball games like that, I'm pretty tense and stressed until the final outcome. I enjoy it as someone who didn't have a dog in the fight, as they say, for these games. So let's start with this week's game of Ohio State versus Ohio. Now, the Buckeyes ended up winning this game comfortably, 37-9. But here are some things that I saw in the game. First and foremost, Sayin was good. His completion percentage went well at 78%. He threw for 347 yards and 3 touchdowns. But he also threw for 2 interceptions. Not necessarily bad throws on his part, right? Some unlucky interceptions. One ball was tipped at the line of scrimmage. So the throws weren't necessarily bad. They were just unlucky. And I will say this, the Ohio defense had Julian Sayin confused. He was missing open receivers, especially in the first half. Whatever scheme they were running, whatever they were doing, his first look was Jeremiah Smith. It was really, really clear that they were making a concerted effort to get Jeremiah Smith the ball, and rightfully so to some degree. I'm a big believer in getting your best player the ball because your best players give you the best chance to win. But what I don't like is when you try so hard to do that you're not scanning the field and looking for the players that are open. There are several times I saw Tate wide open and Sayin didn't even look at him. He didn't throw the ball in his direction. I don't think Brandon Ennis even got a catch yesterday, which is something that needs to change. He should be a big part of the offense this year as well. So there's still definitely a lot for Sayin to learn and do better and be better. And that's scary, right? He threw for 347 yards and 3 touchdowns. Imagine if he was better. Well, I would say he'd throw for 500 plus yards, but the truth is Ohio State would be up by so much, the backups would come in. But that was not the case this game, and the starters stayed in offensively for the whole game. Defensively, the last series, a lot of substitutes got to play. And let's talk about the running game. The running game was much better. Ohio is a quality opponent. If you watched my episode last week, then you know that I said I expected Ohio to score the most points that's been scored on Ohio State so far. And they did at 9. So the running game offensively was much better, and Bo Jackson just stands out. He finally got a chance to play with the first team offense, and he's just the better running back. And it makes me feel bad for Peoples because he's waited his turn and he's waited to get his opportunity, and I still feel like he's better than Donald, but neither one are just playing as well as Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson just looks quicker with the ball. He looks like he has better vision. He looks more decisive. He just looks like he's doing everything better as a true freshman. I hope Peoples still gets a chance to play because he deserves it. He's earned his right to play. But right now, as far as I'm concerned, we have 3 running backs to play consistently, and Bo Jackson looks the best. The defense was great. Again, they were downhill, aggressive. I hope they continue to be that way all season long. The problem with being downhill and aggressive is the risk you take of a big play. And Ohio had the one big play where Styles Jr. couldn't make the tackle. He wasn't in bad coverage. He was right on the guy. It was just he reached up, the ball came to his left, and it snuck in there. The receiver caught it, and then Styles just didn't make the play. After he caught it, he didn't tackle him. He was worried too much about trying to force a fumble or force an incompletion, and he didn't secure the tackle, and so the receiver was able to make it all the way to the touchdown. And that's some of the risks you take when you play aggressive downhill defense, and that's what happened in this game. The defense will learn from it. They'll be better. His Styles Jr. got injured. Let's hope he's okay. And so Ohio State ends up winning comfortably 37-9, and some stuff to build off of. 3-0. Still number 1 in the nation, and they have a bye next week, so they get to practice. They get to get a little better. Sane gets to get a little better. They should use the bye week, hopefully, because it wasn't a great game like it was against Grambling. So if they had gone out and blown out Ohio 70-0 like they did Grambling, maybe they'd get more time off. Maybe they'd have to practice with less stress, but because the game went the way it did, I imagine their bye week is not going to be as comfortable as maybe they would like, the players, that is. In the other games that I chose last week, Wisconsin at Alabama, I chose Alabama. Alabama won that 38-14. Alabama very much looks like the quote-unquote old Alabama after their week 1 Florida State just debacle. Everyone ready to give up on Alabama and call them out of it because Saban's gone and DeBoer's in charge. And my preseason pick to win the SEC is Alabama. It was Alabama, and I still think that they have the best team in the SEC. I still believe that. They look like the best team, and regardless of the Georgia-Tennessee game, and I'll talk about that here in a minute, I still think Alabama has the best chance to win the SEC, because also Arch Manning does not look great. He looks a bit overrated. Texas is not playing great quality opponents. They played Texas El Paso last week, and Arch Manning didn't light the world on fire, so still like Alabama to win the SEC until they get beat and show me otherwise. Next game, Clemson at Georgia Tech. Again, good game. Close game. Georgia Tech kicking a field goal at the end, running on the field, no timeouts, winning the game 20-21. And I picked Georgia Tech to win this game. And I'll be honest with you, I actually didn't even think it was going to be this situation where Georgia Tech had to go out there and kick a field goal at the end to win. I just thought up to that point, Clemson wasn't playing well and Georgia Tech was a better team, but Clemson has talent. They just have talent, and whatever's wrong with Clemson, whatever reason they can't get it together on offense, they still have a decent defense, and their defense kept them in the game. Georgia Tech prevailed as I expected. And now to Georgia at Tennessee. Again, I picked Tennessee. Tennessee should have, by all accounts, won this game. The first half, they came out world of fire. Georgia could do nothing to stop their offense. They went up 21-7 in the blink of an eye, and then I don't know what happens to teams. I don't know if the defense really just adjusts that well, or if they just get too comfortable on offense and get too complacent and change the way they were handling business before. That just allows a team back in the game. Ryan Day does the same thing, and it drives me nuts. Tennessee all of a sudden couldn't really move the ball as well for a little while. Georgia gets back in the game. Georgia takes the lead, as a matter of fact. And then it became a back and forth until the fourth quarter. And in the fourth quarter, at the end of the game, Tennessee drives down, get in field goal distance, and they line up to position the field goal to go to the middle of the field with 2 timeouts left, 7 seconds on the clock. The offensive lineman jumps for Tennessee. Not sure how you make that mistake there. The offensive lineman actually hurt Tennessee quite a bit throughout the game with holdings and false starts. So that was a problem for Tennessee for sure, the offensive line. And then for whatever reason, in the coach's infinite wisdom, after the false start was flagged, he decided, well, I'm not going to line up the ball anymore in the middle of the field. I'm just going to go out there and let the kicker kick it 5 yards deeper. And to me, that was a huge mistake. I didn't like it before the kicker kicked it. I thought, why make this harder on your kicker? It's already a pressure situation to try to win the game, end of regulation against Georgia. He had already missed one earlier in the game. Who cares if you lost 5 yards? Go try to line it up, center it in the middle of the field, and then use one of your timeouts and let your kicker do his thing in the best, most comfortable position your kicker can be in. And so, of course, the kicker goes out there. He blows it. They go into overtime. Tennessee can only muster a field goal. Georgia gets down to the 2-yard line in one run and then finishes the game the next play. I really felt like coaching blew that game. Heupel is doing a great job as an offensive coordinator, making the Tennessee team better as a team overall. There he just showed poor management and leadership as a head coach. And if he would have handled that situation better, Tennessee should have come out on top and won that game. But it's just small little mistakes like that can cost a team a game. And it sucks when it's the coaching staff that does it and not players. So that was a miss for me. Just like the next game, Texas A&M at Notre Dame. Same situation. Great game. A 41-40 final score. Texas A&M scores on the final drive. Notre Dame had taken the lead off the extra point, if you didn't see this game. Ended up with 40 instead of 41 because of a muffed extra point. And then Texas A&M's ability to go down and score and not muff the extra point, make the extra point, is what is the difference in the game and allows Texas A&M to win. Now, I picked Notre Dame to win this game. I have no dog in this fight. I'm not a Notre Dame fan. I'm not a Texas A&M fan. But I will say this. There's been clear evidence that on the final play of Texas A&M's offensive series where they scored a touchdown to win the game, the left guard tackled the defensive lineman, the interior lineman. He just wrapped his arm around his leg and tackled him and pulled him down, and it was uncalled. You can say everything you want about refs not changing the outcome of a game, and I can get on board with that if two receivers are shoving each other and the defender is a little handsy with the receiver. But again, if the defender is completely adjusting the receiver's body, not allowing him to jump, preventing him from running, that's a pass interference that has to be called. And the same for this offensive lineman tackling a defensive lineman. That is a holding that has to be called. It has to be called. We're not talking about arm just a little bit outside the body holding the jersey while he's going by. We're talking a straight tackle of this guy's leg, taking him down to the ground. That's egregious, and it has to be called. And if I were a Notre Dame fan, if this would have happened to Ohio State in an Ohio State game, I would be livid that this play wasn't called. Don't worry, I know how it is. We got some big games coming up, and there will be some poor refereeing in this big games. That's just one thing you can count on. It's like the referees choke in these big game environments. Like, they're not built for it. This is definitely a choke by the referee at the end of this game. Next game, Florida LSU. I don't think anyone's surprised after Florida losing to South Florida last week. They go into LSU and lose 20-10. It's hard to make of exactly what LSU is because they beat Clemson barely 17-10. Clemson's not who we thought they were. They beat Florida 20-10. Florida is not who we thought they were, and it was at home at LSU. So it seems to me like LSU has a solid defense, but their offense still leaves a lot to be desired. Their offense just doesn't seem to be getting it done as much much as you would expect for Nussmeier returning to LSU, and you just expected their offense to be a little bit more explosive. They're being compared to Ohio State as wide receiver university because of the receivers they put in the NFL and how successful they are. And I get it. It's a legitimate argument when you want to just compare, say, the top 5. But when you want to compare across the board, Ohio State receivers versus LSU receivers, to me, hands down, Ohio State is wide receiver university, with LSU being a close second. And then we have Ohio State beating Ohio. So for me, I went 3-2 on the week, being wrong about Tennessee and Notre Dame, which again, both of those teams could have won those games. Tennessee, poor coaching; Notre Dame, poor officiating. And I could have went 5-0 with upset picks in there, but I didn't. And the last thing we want to talk about is Vanderbilt versus South Carolina. That wasn't on the list. I didn't pick it. South Carolina's quarterback, he got knocked out in the first quarter, and we all know how valuable he is to that team. But for Vanderbilt to be able to go out there and beat South Carolina 31-7, you have to take notice of that. That's not something you can ignore. As a matter of fact, it's so much something that cannot be ignored that they made the top 25 this week. So Vanderbilt comes in to the top 25 for the first time this season at 3-0 after beating South Carolina at number 20. That win did a lot for them. Now Vanderbilt's going to have higher expectations on their season. So when you look at the Vanderbilt schedule remaining this season, they have Georgia State, Utah State, so they could easily be 5-0, but then they have to play Alabama in Tuscaloosa. So I'm sure Alabama is going to have revenge on their mind after losing to Vanderbilt in that upset last season. Then they have a bye week. Then they get LSU at home. And frankly, at this point, I feel like it's a very winnable game for Vanderbilt because LSU's offense does not look great. Then they have Missouri at home. Then they go to Texas. Going to be a tough game, tough environment. And then they play Auburn at home. They have a bye week, then Kentucky at home. Then they go to Tennessee. Outside of playing Georgia, they have a pretty tough schedule overall, which I think will hurt them in their chances of being a top SEC team at the end of the season that can make the playoffs, but they're definitely going to at least finish middle of the pack. They look like maybe a 3-4 loss team, which for Vanderbilt, hey, that's pretty good. So I just wanted to say that. So every week, keep an eye on Vanderbilt, and who knows, they go to Tuscaloosa and they just get blown out by Alabama, and then nobody's even considering Vanderbilt anymore. But they're very confident. They're very cocky. They were talking smack about South Carolina before the game, which frankly I thought was going to come back to bite them. Clearly it's working for them. 31-7 win over South Carolina. Vanderbilt, a team to keep an eye on. All right, so here's the top 25 this week of the AP poll. So if you look at it closely, you can see the major changes are not a lot. Notre Dame gets knocked out of the top 10. Texas A&M comes in, but otherwise not really major changes from last week. But I made some major changes, and notably, you'll see that I have dropped a team significantly, and I'll explain why. So my top 10 at number 1, I have, of course, the Ohio State University. They're undefeated. They started the season off beating, the preseason favorite Texas to be number 1. And so until they get beat, they deserve to be number 1, unless, of course, Texas just starts losing to other teams and turns out not to be as good as everyone thought they were. Then that hurts Ohio State's victory against Texas. But for now, they deserve to be number 1. Number 2, I have Miami. They have 2 ranked wins already. They beat USF so bad that USF got knocked right back out of the top 25 after beating Boise State and Florida. Well, Miami is sharp right now. They look really good. Beck is playing really well, and you have to give them credit for what they're doing. So I'm going based off of not preseason hype or beliefs, but based off of performance. Remember, preseason, I had Penn State winning the national championship. Number 3, I have Oregon. Again, they look like one of the best teams in the country. They haven't really played anyone. Again, Oklahoma State, they are a power conference team, but they don't look good at all this year. They just got smacked again this weekend. But Oregon definitely looks tough, and Oklahoma State at least is a power conference team. So Oregon gets credit for smacking a high-level team 69-3 the way they did. Number 4, LSU, because like I said before, can't really tell how good they are just yet. Strong defense, weak offense. That's how I see LSU right now. Number 5, Florida State. They had a bye this week, didn't play anyone, but so far, the first 2 games of the season, they look incredible. So no really reason to drop them any farther. Number 6, I'm bringing in Illinois. Illinois is underrated. I truly believe that. Probably their first loss of the season, in my opinion, will most likely be Ohio State. Again, I don't know that for sure, but that's where I have them right now in my mind. So I have them coming in at number 6. Number 7, I have Georgia. I didn't even have Georgia in the top 10 last week, and that's because they hadn't played anybody. They didn't deserve to be in the top 10. They did beat Tennessee at Tennessee this week, even though they should have lost that game. It is what it is. They won. They ended up with the victory, and they did beat Tennessee, so they deserve to be number 7. Number 8, Oklahoma. Same reasons. They beat scum, so they did beat somebody that was ranked, so they earned their way into the top 10. Number 9, Texas A&M. They're 3-0. They just went to South Bend and beat Notre Dame. Again, same situation. Should they have won that game if the refs didn't miss a call? Who knows? Maybe the refs call the holding play, they still score the touchdown and win. We'll never know. For now, they won. They're 3-0. Number 9, Texas A&M. And then number 10, Penn State. They're, I think, number 2. They haven't played anyone, and they look sometimes really good and sometimes not so good. And it's really hard to gauge what Penn State is and what they're going to be. Now, granted, just like Ohio State did last year, all they have to do is be at their best by the end of the season. That's all they have to do. They just have to get through the season, make the playoffs, and if they're playing their best, they can definitely make a run and win the title. But for now, they're number 10 for me. And there you have it, my top 10. And I have 4 Big Ten teams in the top 10, and I have 4 SEC teams in the top 10 and 2 ACC teams in the top 10, which I'll tell you honestly, going into the season, if you told me I would have 2 ACC teams in the top 10, I would have said, all right, Clemson and who's playing well? Maybe Miami so far, because I did believe in Miami, but I thought they had a pretty tough schedule this season. But for it to be Miami and Florida State and not Clemson, it's a little surprising. So I'm a little surprised with this top 10, my own top 10.
Hey, quick time out here. Please take a moment to just subscribe, comment, and like. If you do all 3 of those things, you'll really help me out in getting the word out for this show. Help me hopefully gain a larger audience. I would greatly appreciate it. So comment, like, and subscribe, please. And go Bucks.
And now it's time for Legends in Scarlet and Gray. So if you watched my first episode, you saw my all-time Ohio State team. My favorite linebacker of all time at Ohio State, even though he doesn't have the greatest stats and he's not quote unquote the best linebacker at Ohio State history, because it's Chris Spielman who will probably be in this portion of the show someday. I really wanted to give some love and show some love to AJ Hawk. AJ Hawk is one of the greatest linebackers in Ohio State history, in my opinion. Michigan. He was big. He was fast. He was athletic. He was a leader. He played from 2002 to 2005. And maybe we have some younger fans who didn't get to see A.J. Hawk play. So now it's time to learn a little bit about A.J. Hawk. He played 14 games as a freshman. That's right, as a freshman, 14 games. He only had 26 tackles and 3 tackles for loss and 1 sack. When I say he played 14 games, he didn't start 14 games. He just came in and he got playing time. He got reps. He got to play, but significant times. And then he really took off his sophomore year. He played 13 games. He had 106 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 2 interceptions. And he led the team with 106 tackles. Then his junior year, he only played 12 games. He had 141 tackles in 12 games, obviously leading the team. 8 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and an interception. And then his senior year, he played 12 games. He had 121 tackles, team leader again. So 3 years in a row, he led the team in tackles, 16 and a half tackles for loss, more than double the year before. 9 sacks, which was more than he had had all 3 seasons combined prior, and 2 interceptions. So his career totals, he had 394 tackles, 41 tackles for loss, 15 sacks, and 7 interceptions. 7 interceptions as a middle linebacker. Where he ranks in history of Ohio State linebackers, he's number 5. He's in the top 5 of all time. Chris Spielman, Marcus Merrick, Tom Cousineau. They had more tackles than he did. Tackles for loss, his 41 only trails Mike Vrabel and the Big Cat, the aforementioned Big Cat, Andy Katzenmoyer, and Chris Spielman. His sacks at 15, it's not in the top 5 or anything for Buckeye history, but that's still pretty good for a middle linebacker. But interceptions, his 7 career interceptions is the most by an Ohio State linebacker in many, many years. I don't even know how far back you'd have to go to find a linebacker to have at least 7 interceptions. So Hawk was considered, the anchor of the Ohio State defense for 3 years. He won the Lombardi Award in 2005 as the best linebacker in college football. He was a consensus All-American in both 2004 and 2005. A.J. Hawk, if you don't know about him, look him up. One of the greatest linebackers we ever had at Ohio State, and that is this week's Legends in Scarlet and Gray. Finally, it's time to get into my Week 4 predictions and preview of the top 5 games of next week. As I previously stated, Ohio State has a bye this week, so we won't need to talk about their game, preview their game. In no particular order, I just picked what I perceive to be the 5 best games of the week. There might be 1 or 2 that you might feel differently about, but this is what I'm picking. So game 1, Texas Tech at Utah. Now, Utah is ranked number 16. Texas Tech is ranked number 17. Utah is really, really, really tough to beat at home. That's why it only makes sense. I'm going with Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech has bought themselves a good team. They're playing really well. And I'm not crapping on the fact that they paid for their players. Until someone makes that cap or changes the rules, they're following the rules and they're spending the money they have to spend at Texas Tech to be good. And I think they did it. I almost picked them to win the Big 12 this season. I wasn't quite sure how they were going to turn out as a team. I didn't know how the season was going to go, so I couldn't quite take myself there to do it. I ended up going with what I knew, which was Avery Johnson and Kansas State. Clearly that was a mistake. They're 1-2 right now. I really, really, truly believe that trip to Ireland just messed up this whole first portion of their season. So Texas Tech over Utah at Utah, that would be probably my biggest upset of the week. Not that it's a huge one, 17 versus 16, but Utah at home. Next game, I have number 23, Scum at Nebraska. Scum is in the top 25. Nebraska is not. It's a home game for Nebraska. The thing about this game is I feel like it is strength on strength. So what do I mean by that? Well, the strength of Scum's team is their defense. Their offense is not consistent. They put up 13 points against Oklahoma. It didn't look good at all. The problem is Nebraska doesn't have Oklahoma's defense. But what Nebraska does have is a pretty good offense. 9 times out of 10, I like a better defense more than I do the better offense. I just don't know if Raiola is living up to his potential yet to be able to go out there and beat a Scum team who has a solid defense. At the same time, I don't have a lot of faith in Scum's offense. I don't know how good Nebraska's defense can stop the run, which is obviously what Scum relies on. And then, of course, if you can run the ball, then that leaves you available for taking the top off of a defense and, of course, quarterback run, which he did do a lot last week. So I'm really torn about this game, to be honest with you. And the fact that it is at Nebraska makes it a tougher choice. Last week, I went with the home team every game. And as much as I hate Scum, I'm going to have to pick them. I like their defense a little better than I like Nebraska's offense. And I don't like Nebraska's defense. And I don't like Scum's offense. So I really feel like their defense is going to carry the day and take them to a victory at Nebraska, because Nebraska's just not quite there yet as a top tier program. Next game, we got number 22 Auburn at 11 Oklahoma. Can Auburn go in and win this game? Absolutely. They can. Do I think they're going to? No. I got to play the percentages here. Percentage-wise, I think if they play 10 games, Oklahoma wins 7-8 games out of 10. So I'm picking Oklahoma to win this game at home. Unless they blow it, they're the better team. They should win this game. Pretty simple. Next game, number 9, Illinois at number 19, Indiana. Now, for me, this is the biggest game of the weekend, the most highly anticipated game of the weekend, because they're Big Ten teams. I'm a Big Ten fan, and I didn't believe in Indiana prior to this season. I thought last year was kind of a, I don't want to say fluke, but let's just say caught the Big Ten by surprise that Indiana could play like that under their new coach. But I'm a huge Illinois believer, as you could see by my top 10. And even though it's in Indiana, I think Illinois is going to go in there and get the job done. So I like Indiana to win this game. So that's 3 away teams and 1 home team so far. And then the last one is Florida at Miami. I know there's an argument here that Florida's not very good, shouldn't be considered a top game, but it is a rivalry game. And it's not like Florida went and got blown out by USF or LSU in both their losses. Both of their losses have been fairly close. And I think they'll come in and they'll give Miami a decent game. But Carson Beck is playing really well, and conversely, Lagway is not. I thought Lagway would be better this year than he is. I thought you would see a significant growth in him from his freshman to his sophomore seasons. I'm not really seeing that, and the Florida offense is struggling, but the Florida defense is playing well, and it's keeping them in games. They'll do a decent job against Miami, but the way Miami's playing right now, and it's a home game, I'm taking Miami. So I have 3 away teams, 2 home teams. Last week I went 4-2, which puts me 10-7 right now overall in my picks. Remember, I'm only picking the top 5 toughest games of the week to pick. And of course, Ohio State is the 6th if it's not one of the top 5 games. In closing, I have my Instagram topic of the week. And this week I saw Deshaun Foster got fired from UCLA. Now, as UCLA fans probably feel and believe like I do, no one expects them to get their $2 million quarterback transfer from Tennessee and him to come in and them to just be as awful as they are. UCLA picked it up in the second half of last season. They got a lot better. It was like the coaching finally kicked in and the players understood what was trying to be done at UCLA, and UCLA was a reputable quality team the last half of the season last season. So it only makes sense. They bring in a new quarterback, 5-star, $2 million kid, and he's going to help them light up the scoreboard. And that just isn't what happened. It didn't happen. He's not playing well. UCLA didn't play well. And Deshaun Foster gets fired. He has to go. And I don't have any type of feelings towards this other than I know how much Deshaun Foster loved UCLA and being their head coach. He played there. He was a great player there. Great running back. It's hard to replace a guy that their heart is with your program because, you know, he was never going to go anywhere else. Let's say it was an amazing coach and UCLA was competing for Big Ten championships and getting into the playoffs. He would not have left UCLA because that's where his heart is at. So it's tough to see someone like that get let go. But I understand why UCLA did it because they looked terrible the first 3 games of the season so far. All right. And that's it for today's episode of the Buckeye Battle Cry Show. Let me know what you think in the comments, how you feel about my top 10, my picks of the week, my previews. Do you think I picked the right top 5 games of the week? Do you think I really am sleeping on another team that I'm not talking about? Let me know. I want to hear what you have to say and give your opinion, voice your opinion, but voice it in a way that says, well, you know, this is my top 10 and these are the teams I have at top 10. You know, don't just come in and say, oh, you're crazy for having Oklahoma at number 8, for example. Tell me why. Tell me who you think belongs there, why you think they don't belong there. Don't just take shots without backing up your shots. Let me know what you think. I want to hear it. Be happy to hear it. Like I said, thanks for listening to the Buckeye Battle Cry Show. Make sure you follow me on YouTube, comment, like. I'm getting some followers and some views, but I'm not really getting the likes. So please, if you're following me, you must like something I'm doing. So please throw me a like up there. I'd appreciate it. And then share me with your friends. Share the show with people you think would enjoy the show as well. Listen to me weekly anywhere you find podcasts. And of course, right here on YouTube. And until then, bleed scarlet and gray. Go Bucks.